doing out there on the socials? Welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. We're about to bring in our participants for the Zoom room as well. Hey, everyone on Zoom, thank you for joining us. We love you all. Happy Valentine's Day. Um, I didn't make a Valentine for anybody, but this is our Valentine's gift to you today. We're going to introduce the program. If you're out there on the socials and it's your first time, we'll get you situated and let you know what this show is all about, and then we'll introduce our guest for today. And as we always do, we'll have an engaging conversation and check out some of our guests' amazing work as well. So this is Piano Tech Radio Hour, and of course, what we do here is we gather every Saturday and we meet with and we learn from the most fascinating, Eric, and knowledgeable folks in the musical world, including manufacturers of pianos, rebuilders of pianos, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, our core piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can also subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, just $16 a month, get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as all the archival recordings of over 200 episodes in our member area. Join using the link bit.ly/joinptrh, bit.ly/joinptrh. Don't forget about our podcast audio only version, broadcast all over the world and reach number 1, number 5, top 10, top 100 status in all sorts of countries in the performing arts category on iTunes. That's pianotechradio.com. Listen while you're driving, working out, doing dishes, however you like to do the podcast. Check out our blog on Substack for very key information, advanced knowledge for piano techs. And also go to our website, subscribe to our email list, and which I mentioned earlier, and also our socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, to keep up with what we're doing. Now, let us introduce our illustrious guest for the day. His name is Erik Deutsch. Do you like to say Deutsch? Okay. His name is Erik Deutsch, and he used to be based in Brooklyn, but he is now based in Mexico City, Mexico. He's a pianist, composer, and band leader, and his work spans jazz, rock, Americana, and experimental music. After early recognition with the funk jazz collective, Fat Mama, he went on to perform and record with a wide range of artists and projects since 2022. He has served as the full-time keyboardist for the Black Crowes, contributing to their Grammy-nominated album, Happiness Bastards, while continuing to release and tour his own music. Erik, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour. We love you on Valentine's Day. How are you doing?
I'm great. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let me just start off by asking why you moved to Mexico City. What's going on? I mean, certainly the weather's going to be a lot better there than it is up here.
Yeah, Mexico City is having a big moment. I don't know if you visited, but it's a very cool place.
Okay.
In a million ways. And I started coming here to play gigs in 2007. So almost 20 years ago. And I was here with Charlie Hunter in December of
wow.
2007. Yeah. And that trip was really eye-opening for me as to just how special the vibe was here, how cool the crowds were here. And I worked hard after that trip to bring my band from New York back. Eventually did in 2009. And sold out the club and just had a great time again, and continued to do that for the next number of years, multiple times a year, kind of just snowballed, and started a radio show in Guadalajara around 2014, I think, 2015, which is still on the air every Thursday night. And Mexico just built and built and built and became more of a comfortable place and a real home for my music. And eventually around 2018, I had the opportunity to move, and I did it.
Y puedes hablar en español muy bien.
Sí. Okay,
I lived in Peru for about a year and a half. That was fun.
Yeah.
And I've been to Mexico City, but more kind of nearby. Oh, gosh, I forget what the name of the town was. It's kind of just like a nice vacation-y town, and there was cenotes nearby. I can't think of the name of it, but I spent a little bit of time in Mexico.
Yeah, cool. What about Peru? What brought you there?
My partner at the time was doing her PhD research in anthropology
Uh-huh.
on the indigenous people and their practices of photography in Peru. And I was calling myself an ambassador of pianos while I was there, and actually befriended an actual ambassador who played piano, Hernando Torres Fernandez. And eventually within a year, I was speaking on the phone with the president of the country, and I got a private tour of the presidential palace, and that was its own amazing adventure.
Wow.
But this is not about me. This is about you. Um, Tell us a little bit more. Now, I always ask about this question of people. We like to go back to the early years, Erik, of your life and how you first started to get enchanted with music, become a musician and sort of know that this is going to be a central part in your life.
Okay, yeah. Music was in my house when I was born. My dad played piano casually, but my grandfather in the Washington, D.C. area where I was born, my grandfather was a multi-decade professional musician, also president of the DC Local Musicians Union for 35 years. So, and eventually on the international board of the Musicians Union, he was the secretary. I don't even know what that is, but he was on it. So music was around, and when I was 6 years old, I remember just getting in the car after school in Nashville, Tennessee, where we had moved that year. And I said, "Where are we going?" And my mom said, "Piano lessons." So we went to Vanderbilt University, where I started my first lessons, and that's how it happened. It was something that came naturally to me. I had a very good teacher at Vanderbilt, Tom Kester. He was magnificent, and it was Suzuki method, and it came naturally to me. I enjoyed it because I was good at it, and it was fun. And in terms of the enchanted with it, it was just what I did from an early age. I don't know about your experience, but I really enjoyed it. But I've always had a lot of different interests, whether it's sports or socially or whatever, and film. So piano was always something that I did that I was good at, and I think that there was different times in my younger uh, process when I became enchanted at different, with different things at different levels. But that's how it started.
Cool. I love that. Nashville, such a wonderful musical city historically in the United States as well. So much cool stuff going on there. Good. I think it's a good town for piano tuners as well. Um, tell us a little bit about the different domains that you like to play in, and then we'll listen to one of your pieces in a minute or two. But you have a varied interest in terms of the different domains you're playing in rock and roll and jazz and all these different things. Was it always diverse? Did you kind of start in one place and then branch out? And
I I think it's mostly always been diverse. I started with classical music, obviously, was really into the radio and MTV and all that growing up, in that time in the 80s. It was so important in a lot of people's lives. And so I loved playing rock and roll from an early age. My dad was kind of into blues, and R&B, and so that music was around a little bit. And I think that for that reason, it was natural for me, these different styles, and I've always been open to different styles. So when I, for instance, had the chance to play in a reggae band in college, I was super into it. Growing up in Washington, okay, born in DC to Nashville and then back to DC, sixth grade till I graduated high school. So back in Washington for those formative years in the middle school, high school years, a lot of hip hop, a lot of reggae, a lot of Grateful Dead at some point. There's all these different things going on. Go-go music in Washington was really popular. most people don't know what that is outside of Washington, but it's kind of a local delicacy. All these things were natural to me, and I dug it. I think it had, but it also has to do with radio, right? I was a child of the radio, no doubt. I listened to it, called it, tried to win stuff. You know what I mean? And and all these things, I was into them, and I'm fortunate as a professional musician that I think I've had a long and enjoyable career because I literally have fun doing all these things. It's not like it's well, almost to the point where even I have fun playing wedding because I like songs so much. I
Mm,
dig songs, So
mhm.
playing covers, of course, the right wedding, the right band, the right situation, that matters. But um, the right treatment, people that are excited to have you, that kind of thing. And I don't do that so much anymore for sure. But I know that a lot of musicians that were my peers in New York, that would drive them crazy, or if there's a hard
Mhm.
line, can't do it.
Right.
I just really enjoy this stuff. So I've had the opportunity to work in different capacities professionally, like in different bands, like country bands, and you mentioned rock bands, and all these other things. Whilst classical music never really won me over, I like classical music. I love classical music, but as a player, it never won my heart, I would say. Jazz music was after rock and roll was the thing that really made the most sense to me. So in my
Mhm.
heart, I'm a jazz musician somehow. Probably started with Suzuki, right, with the ear training, and that's my essence. That's how I think of things. That's how I compose, basically. But as we will hear a little bit of, and as maybe you notice, my jazz music isn't really traditional either. It basically blends all this stuff that we've been talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean jazz is, I mean genres I always like the concept that genres are really not for the musicians ever. Most musicians will say, "Well, I really can't tell exactly what genre it is." The genres are for the fans so that they can, group things together. Oh, I like this, I like that. We'll put this in this genre. But
Yeah,
jazz, I mean, jazz, and by definition, I always think of it as kind of just like cutting edge music, just full on creativity. Um,
I mean, I think that America and Europe are more obsessed with genre than, and excuse me, the United States and Europe more than the rest of the world, or at least a lot of parts of the world. And we get used to it. In New York, it's very specific, like certain clubs have certain kinds of jazz. And if you're too groovy, you don't fit there. Or if you're too straight ahead, you don't fit there. If you're not experimental enough, certain clubs have certain kinds of rock, and so on and so on. And it's kind of the conversation in New York will be like, hey, you want to go out and see some music tonight? Well, what kind? Would always be the first answer, or the first question, really. I find it very invigorating here in Mexico that people don't ask that. Do you want to see music tonight? Yeah, sure, of course. What is it? Oh, jazz, great. I love jazz. Not like, well, I don't feel like that. It's and because there's more of a focus on the energy and especially from the performers are giving energy, and the crowd really feeds off it here in a special way without worrying about if they're in a jazz club and it kind of sounds like rock or blues or whatever. They don't really, no one seems to care. It's kind of nice. It's nice for my music, so I can
yeah.
travel those different paths.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we, connected with this program. We have a piano tuning operation in New York City. Floating Piano Factory is the name of it. And I think it was about a year and a half ago, for the first time, I decided to host an event and try to get all the different folks from our piano tuning clientele in New York and some folks that I've interviewed on this program together.
Oh,
And
cool.
we did like, you could sign up to play for like 10 to 12 minutes. So it wasn't like somebody was putting on a full-on show,
Mhm.
but we got to get a taste of all the different people in our community. And what I really loved about it was like, yeah, it didn't matter the genre, and it didn't even really matter the sort of quote unquote level of musicianship or professionalism, right? Because we had folks that were Juilliard, we had a duo, we had an Israeli Palestinian piano playing duo from Juilliard, doctoral
Yes.
program or something,
Amazing.
uh, for playing on a cheap spinet piano at Three's Brewery in Brooklyn. Um,
I know that
but
piano.
yeah, yeah. And we also had, someone who was just kind of like a singer-songwriter and they just wanted to play their thing. And there was something about just the spirit of just music. People are playing music and we're listening and they're being present, right? And the audience is being present and paying attention. That, yeah, it didn't matter, right? It wasn't about what genre is
Yeah,
going on.
that sounds really nice, man. I think that piano somehow is a great glue for that kind of that spirit as well, right? Something about bringing pianists together, and letting like a piano summit and having them play. That's the piano the piano glues it together in a really natural and positive way. I would say that's a beautiful thing. Glad you did that.
Yes. Let's check out some of your music. Let's hear this stuff. So I have three options. Do you remember which ones you gave me, or do you want me to list
I
what they
gave
are?
essentially one black and white one. It's the newest one.
Okay.
Um, that is a song of mine. Why don't we do that one first? It's the most
Okay.
recent.
Okay.
The one called Martha.
Okay, Martha,
See
perfect.
that one? It's the
Yep.
first one
Yeah.
that I sent, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna do a
Pick whichever one
screen
it's up to
share and we'll check that out. 1 minute here. Let me get
you. Want me to
my.
talk about it or you want to just play it?
Oh, yeah, we'll give us a little. I'll start queuing it up while you're talking, but just give us a little context, so we kind of
Yeah,
know
sure.
what you're thinking, or.
This is a song of mine that I wrote for my album La Nuit Blanche. Probably wrote about 5, 6 years ago. The album came out in 2022, I believe. It's named for my mom, Martha, and I had so there's a version of this on Spotify, but I was down in Argentina performing concerts for my latest record this past November or October, and went to a wonderful studio at a wonderful guy's house, Corcho Rodriguez. This guy's got a home studio. You can't believe it. He brings in Jimmy Page and Billy Gibbons and Slash, people like that to record there. Johnny Depp. So a lot of videos from there of his fancy friends. You'll see a nice picture of Jimmy Page in the background while I'm playing from that studio. In any case, I went over there. He said, "Hey, let's make a video." I said, "Okay." And within minutes, I was playing the song on his beautiful Steinway B, I believe, and he had his assistants filming, and then he popped it up on YouTube within 10 minutes of me finishing the piece with
Nice.
the credits and everything. I was impressed at how quickly this happened, and it's a great recording from a nice studio, beautiful piano. So.
All right, let's check that out. Very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like how it kind of seamlessly transitions into some different feels there, a little bit unexpectedly, but smoothly and enjoyably.
Thanks, man.
Well done. Um, I want to switch to something that brought up in the bio there. You're playing with the Black Crows. Are you still currently playing with them or yeah. Um, How, that must have been really a fascinating kind of opportunity to come across, right? I mean, you said you were listening to music. I think you said like in the 80s, 90s growing up, and I'm sure the Black Crowes were, you know, just hitting
Absolutely.
the scene and mainstream groups. So it must be kind of surreal to join a group that was part of the ethos of your youth, right?
Absolutely. I'm not sure I'm trying to think if it's the first one like that in my career. It's no, I mean, I played with a fair amount of bands that I was a fan of before I joined them, but this one is special because when the first record came out, I was on it. It was kind of my era of MTV. So Shake Your Moneymaker came out in 1989, 1990, right around there. And that was a formative time for me. And I loved it. And it was different because in that era, all the rock and roll that was popular was from like Los Angeles or New Jersey. It's kind of like in the hair band era. So when Black Crowes came out, they looked different, kind of, but they sounded different for sure. And there was REM, there was other bands in the top 40 that were different, but the majority of it was your kind of glammy hair scene. And the Black Crowes were interesting because they kind of sounded like classic rock, and and when I say classic rock back then, it means a little different now. Back then, that meant the Stones, Zeppelin, the Who, Pink Floyd in the 70s ran bands, a lot of them British, the Faces, and the Black Crowes sounded like them, but they were Southern also, so they kind of reminded people a little bit of maybe Leonard Skinner or the Allman Brothers Band or something. And the first single was "Hard to Handle," the Otis Redding cover, and that was such a big song. It was a big thing. And when their next record came out in 1992, I think it was so original and amazing. Second Black Rose record. I remember watching them Saturday Night Live and being blown away as a kid, and how intense it was, how cool it was, and kind of different. So the chance to get to know them and meet them and join the band is like you said, exciting and cool. And that's the music business is smaller than we think. That's one of the lessons.
So how did that opportunity cross your path? Was it kind of like a little referral, like you said, just a small world type of thing? Did they put out a call for um, auditions or
That's
something? Or
referral. Like almost everything I've ever gotten has been referral. The few auditions that I've done in the last 25 years are usually with strange experiences and without success in my experience. But yeah, they living in New York, you come across a lot of these folks, and they were hanging out around there. The band had broken up for nearly 10 years or something around there, and Chris had a solo band, and Rich had a solo band, and I knew all kinds of people playing with them. I ended up jamming with Chris Robinson on a gig in Telluride around 2017, maybe, and he then and I mean, when I have friends in his band, like some of my best friends are in his band, like my neighbor, who's Jeff Hills, mixed all my records and plays bass in my band. He was in Chris's band. So Chris asked me to join his band and I didn't. And then it broke up quickly after that. And then the Black Rose had an audition, which I went to. It was a little odd and I didn't get, they told me I was going to get it. And then they said, nah, we went a different direction. Okay. At that time I was playing with Leftover Salmon, a a vintage jam band from Colorado. I did that for 4 years, and right after that, that was in September of 2019. Right after that, I joined the Dixie Chicks. I quit Salmon and joined the Chicks, January of 2020, and the big huge tour that was going to happen got uh, canceled for COVID after one show. And then I was sitting home in 2021 here in Mexico, and the Black Crowes called and said, "Hey, we wanted you to join the band now." So, and ever since, that's been the job.
Yeah. I mean, I love hearing just the detailed stories. I mean, I didn't share much about my background with you, but I studied music. I studied jazz piano in university. I went on to do a bunch of other different stuff, but you know, um, I went a certain distance into like the industry and playing in certain directions, but I'm always just curious kind of the pathways that people take, what gets them where they go. And because being a musician, I guess it'll probably always be this way. It's always changing how a career develops, and you really can't rely on what worked a decade or two ago. You're going from CDs to MP3s to streaming only, or, the records are paying the money and the shows are paying the money, and then all of you got to have a social media following and YouTube things. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts on where maybe where things are going and what's working today, or what has worked recently in terms of making a way for yourself as a creative person.
I have a million thoughts on that, but I mean,
Okay.
you know what I mean? But it's like, it's such an impossible question also in a lot of ways. I just think it depends on like where you live, what you want to do, what you're good at, what's the goal, right? Like what defines success. The definition of success for musicians varies so greatly. And um a lot of musicians are massively successful and still not satisfied, right? Or
Hmm.
unfulfilled. And a lot of musicians are really fulfilled in what other musicians might deem not that successful, right?
Right.
And I know that's a super vague response, but
No, it's a good one. It's a good
well,
one.
okay.
I
Thank
think just on your point, just to feed what you're saying, I think a problem can be, and I probably face this at times with approaching a musical career, is sometimes there's no goal at all, right? It's just like, oh, you see other people that are successful, and you're like, I know I want to do whatever I'm at. That's not what I see that's successful, but there's not necessarily a defined goal. Oh, hey, I want to play to big audiences, and then that'll be the thing that I can say I did it, or I'm gonna go on tour, or I'm gonna release an album with so many downloads or purchases, or is there money involved or not? I think a lot of creative people too, they don't know what they want
yeah,
financially, because and maybe they're even a little bit uh like have an anathema towards the being financially. They're not sure whether they want to be financially successful or not, because it may feel like it's the wrong direction if I'm too commercial or something.
I think that to me that most of that like selling out thing like kind of like went out the window a while ago. Like and now everybody would, and there's so many different ways to sell out now. Back then it was like indie or big label, and the big label was the sellout, right? And that's when like your music became not cool. Well, now it's just like there's dozens more pathways, right, to recognition and success. But you know, it's for some people just making their own music is success. For some people, having a gig where they make a living is a success, like 5 nights a week in a restaurant where people come to listen to you in a bar and appreciate you, in a random town wherever. That's success, to a lot of people. It's I think the one thing that has maintained through all of this is make good music, record it well, collaborate with other talented people, and then release the music. I think that is like, if you stick to that, I think that is a pathway that works.
Hmm.
Now, it doesn't necessarily work right away or mean instant financial success or commercial success, but it over time that'll pay off.
Yeah.
I I think so. I said make good music, record the music, collaborate with good people, and release the music, right? And the thing is, if you, number one, focus on making good music. Don't focus on making music that you think is going to pop for this reason or not. You can do that, but there's a good chance that's going to be a waste of your time. Maybe you're a genius with that, and you know, like there are a lot of folks out there that have figured out, I'm going to do this thing and it works, right?
Secret
But
sauce. Yeah.
yeah, and then record that music, right? That's easier than ever. That's a great thing about this era. It's easy to record. You're not expected to go into a studio that costs, you know, $2K a day, and you don't have to do that anymore. Collaborate with good people. Don't collaborate with people because you think they're famous or they're going to get you somewhere. Don't collaborate with untalented people who are selling you something, you know, some snake oil or whatever you want to call it, right? And don't collaborate with jerks, no matter how talented they are, right? I think collaborate with your friends and with talented people you meet that you vibe with,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to pay those people. You know, don't don't use people, right? Give it out, put it out, and they'll come back around. And then, really, the most important part is release that music, because after all that work, if you don't, and it's easier than ever to release music too, right? You can do it the same day almost. If you don't, it's sad what happens, because people make important things, or people are important musically in an era, in a time in their life. It doesn't always continue. It doesn't last forever. And even if that person is talented for their whole life and continues to work, that record they made in 2015 that really captured that sound of that time and where they were, somehow they don't age that well, in my experience. It's hard to make a record and put it out years later.
Mm-hmm.
They don't age that well. I'm not sure why, right? Because there's no reason that music that you made in 2015 shouldn't you put it out in 2024, unless you're like, if maybe for pop it's more obvious. Yeah, well, pop ages differently. But if it's just music, why wouldn't it? And I think it just has to do with like relevance in the conscious of the artist, and in the consciousness of the artist, and like whatever's going on in the world, somehow
Yeah.
music is affected by that, right?
Yeah. Music is contextual for sure.
You know
No,
how many times, excuse me, I'll just finish and say,
go
like,
ahead.
even a band that everybody loves says like, wow, we're putting out this unreleased tracks, records. Wow. And it's very rarely exciting.
Mm.
You know, like, oh, the lost Led Zeppelin album. Well, there's like one good song, or
Mm.
one song everyone cares about. You know, everything's good, but I don't know why.
Mm.
But
It's a good point. I
yeah.
mean, I love, there's a couple things I want to go dive deeper on. So, one, I love that. Two, just a brief thought I had when I moved to Brooklyn. I think it was like a Craigslist post. I moved in with a couple of guys for a couple of months. One of them ended up being a advisor, I think, at one of the art schools, like Parsons or the New School or something, to art students. He was an artist himself, and I remember he would say this thing, and it's always stuck with me. He said, "I don't, I don't know what an artist is, but I know an artist makes art." So he would make art, like so, it's just like, does it make you an artist if you're in the MoMA, or does it make you an artist if you're doing graffiti? Well, did you just make art? That's a big part of it, right?
The
So keep
one thing you
making
can
things, right?
control. That's the one thing you can control. You can just make good art and just try your
Mhm.
hardest to make good art, you know?
And put it out there. And then I just wanted to extend that one other level, because I think there could be some conflicted approaches here. Is Do you feel like part of that process is not an obligation, but I guess to be part of the process, to include it, is that to promote it? Like, is it enough to just put it out there? Like, hey, I can put it up on YouTube, I put it on Spotify. Do you think there's almost like an obligation, or like a essential ingredient, maybe that some people actually miss, to actually try to, like, it's there, but is it hiding under a rock? Right?
It, absolutely, it's an important agreement if you want the music to matter or have potential for commercial success, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I don't include it in the essentials
Okay.
because it's not everybody needs that.
Mm,
And it does cost money and time and can be sometimes a little bit like banging your head against the wall. It's like the promotional kind of process and experience, the publicist hiring, that kind of thing. It
right.
and what matters changes so much. Like, the emphasis on Spotify and your plays and everything has been so just important in the industry in the last 10 years. But then you're like, but what does it really do? Like, you can spend money to build that, but where does it get you as an artist of certain types? Maybe nowhere.
Mm,
Hard to say. And so my answer is, yeah, that's an important thing for certain kinds of artists for sure.
mm. It's dependent on the artist, really.
Yeah, but at least if you release it, it exists. That's
Somebody
like
could
the
find it.
existence is what I think is the most important thing.
Mhm.
Does it matter to anyone? That's like the next step, and that has to do with promotion often. Yeah.
Yeah. And some things I think part of their value is their niche appeal. The fact that only a few people are aware of it, or it's like a small community of people that are in the know about this, you know,
Yeah. At least
exciting thing.
documenting it is what then it always has the chance to grow, to catch on to something, right? If it exists, it has a chance. If it doesn't exist, there's no chance. You can let it exist and nobody notices, and then later on somebody said, "Hey, what is this thing, by the way?" And it could form another set. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to listen to some more of your music in a moment here. Just one last comment on that. I'm curious about your thoughts about this. At a certain point as a musician, I it's kind of funny to say it this way, but I can't think of any better way to say it. But I feel like when I would look at my heroes as musicians and that had great music that I loved and just felt so iconic, I would always find something else that they put out there that didn't feel so iconic to me. Whether it was because I didn't get it or it hadn't reached its time or really that wasn't their best work. But I think what I learned from that, and that's just my judgment, right? I may have bad taste, is that it's just about putting it out there, right? It's like those people too have a varied sense of what's gonna hit or not, and they're just putting it out there, and they may love some of it. And also the other thing that's a lot of artists, I've heard artists say, I didn't think that was going to be the hit.
Yeah, that's
They'll
really.
say that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's art. It's not supposed to be your best thing every time. That's like impossible. It makes no sense, right? And it's like you're a cook, like, and you're a master of like Roman pastas. Well, then you try some other stuff, and maybe it's not as good. But what are you going to do? Just cook amatriciana and carbonara for your entire career? You got to try other plates, and maybe one night you strike lightning, you hit lightning in a bottle or catch lightning in a bottle, and you do something really special that you didn't expect to do. I think that film is a really uh, good example of what you're describing, and also a bad example of art in an artist sense. And I'll explain. Someone puts out a movie and they say, this movie, a great director puts out a movie and they say, "Nah, this movie isn't great." The new Yorgos Begonia, I think, is an example. This guy, the Greek guy Yorgos something. He did The Favorite, and he did the Emma Stone movies, whatever. He put out a new one this year with Emma Stone. It didn't get as much hype because they don't think it's as good as the last two. And sometimes they get panned. That's what the films, they say, "No, this movie's no good. He missed it. He missed the mark. He lost his way." And then you watch it, and you're like, "Well, it's a good piece of art. Is it as good as the one he made 5 years ago? Probably not. But that's the nature of art. You don't make your best album every time. You
Mm,
you strive to, maybe, or maybe you don't. Maybe you say, I made my what people thought was my best album. I have to do something completely different to
mhm.
me, and you try something. And I think David Bowie was king of this. Bowie was always reinventing himself, trying different things, trying different looks, trying new bands, and some things just didn't work. And that was the nature of his artistic curiosity, you know? And so it would be natural that we would listen to our favorite artists and not love every single thing they did. Because if they did only one thing, they probably wouldn't be our favorite artists in the end. They'd probably be kind of boring, right?
Hmm. Good point. All right, I want to get back to some of your work. Do you have a suggestion as to the next option here?
There was another solo piece, but there was a third thing. What was the third
So
thing?
we have Ask Me Now and Monk's Point, and we have Theo Blackman and
Why
Erik
don't we do me and
Deutsch.
Theo? Because that's a little different.
Okay, yeah, let's check
That
that
one,
out.
that's Theo.
Go ahead, give a little context.
Theo's a wonderful vocalist, just a completely unique and incredibly talented individual and great person. That was we have a little duo. We have a trio record with a saxophonist. This was our duo tour just before the pandemic, February 2020, in Guadalajara. This concert in a beautiful concert hall, and we're going to do a song here from Kate Bush. And Theo made a record of Kate Bush music about 15 years ago before it was cool. Now it seems to be kind of trendy. And this is her classic Wuthering Heights. And you hear Theo's really interesting approach and a nice version, I think.
All right, let's hit it.
Heathcliff, it's me, Kathy, come home. I'm so cold. Let me in your window. Heathcliff, wuthering, 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 wuthering,
Very nice. Very creative, unique stuff.
Yeah, it's a really great thing to play with him because it's different and fun, you know. It feels like a rare avant-garde artist who's accessible in a cool way.
Yeah, I love it. I do want to maybe we usually try to cut it right at the hour, but I'd love to just get a taste of the third recording. Maybe we just play a minute or two. Does that sound fair?
Sure, whatever you like, man.
Let's see. So is this a longer one? So we have Ask Me Now and Monk's Point on there. Does it make sense to do one or the other or like
Yeah,
the specific part?
it's a medley. It's a medley. I did it during a pandemic for like some kind of video project. It's from
Okay.
my
I'll
house.
just start at the
Yeah, the beginning is great. It's from my house here in Mexico City. So
Oh, very cool. All right, yeah, I'll just start it from the beginning and we'll cut it early, but right here. And we'll go full screen on that. There we go. Come on here. I'll stop it abruptly there just so we can move towards the end here. But that's great. It's great to hear the breadth of your work. I'm glad we did that.
Oh, cool.
You captured Monk's vibe very well. I like that. Um, yeah, so we do typically try to keep it to about an hour. We'll go maybe 5 minutes here. But sort of as we wrap up here, is there anything that you like to share, with audiences? Hey, I want to check out this album. I'm gonna go see this show, or just some words of wisdom or final thoughts that you like to give?
I mean, I as far as stuff to promote, I have my new record. This Was Then came out last summer.
Mhm.
It's a cool record. You can stream that everywhere. I have a new band here called the Hate Love Trio, and it's a more psychedelic synthesizer rhythm band. That record comes out this Friday, actually, so I'm excited about that.
Can
And
you, I'm gonna pause you. Can you say psychedelic synthesizer in Spanish?
Sintetizadore psicadélica.
I
Psicadélico.
think synthesizer is one of my favorite words in Spanish. I don't know why. All right, anyways, move forward.
Um, that's coming up Friday. I got a 5.5 months on the road with the Black Crows this year. Japan, Australia, Europe, America. So that's kind of fun. And words of wisdom. I love that pianists stick together. Piano people like to hang out with one another. It's a beautiful thing. Like somehow we're not in competition with each other the same as maybe drummers are, maybe horn players. I don't know. It's something that's a little different. And I've always enjoyed time with piano people, whether they're tuners or lovers or players or whatever. And I think sometimes, though, we don't get together enough. So I think let's all keep doing that and looking for chances to connect. Yeah.
Yeah, you said something earlier. You used the phrase piano summit, and I feel like it's not a thing, right? Like, is that a thing you've participated in? I forget exactly what the context was, but I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I once had my teacher Art Landy, my longtime teacher, and his one of his other students, Fred Hirsch, had in my apartment in Brooklyn. We had a thing where I hosted, and they called a bunch of their different students, and all kinds of great pianists in New York came over to my house one morning, and each played kind of like what you described. I was talking
Okay.
about what you described about and they. I think sometimes in jazz you hear that term like Oregon Summit. It was like three badass dudes playing on the same record on the same date,
hmm
right?
hmm
So it's kind of a jazzy, I don't know, it's some random jazz kind of thing, but it is cool. Piano Summit. It's like let's get them all together, and let's think tank it, see what's going on.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, here's to more piano summits. We'll try to make more of those things happen. All right. Well, it's been wonderful to have you as a guest, and thank you for sharing your music and your unique perspective. Um, I'll walk us out here, and then actually, what I usually do is we'll jump off the Zoom just to let out all the participants. Jump back on real quick. We'll do a quick wrap up, just you and me.
Okay, cool.
But in the meantime, I'll do our outro, and we'll call it a day on this lovely Valentine's. Okay, we have reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. Thank you very much to our guests today and our participants for joining us. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. For those of you that join us today by just signing up for this session individually, hey, make your life more convenient. Subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, just $16 a month. You get direct access to the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's new session. Sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. Don't forget about the podcast, the Substack where we publish a blog, and the newsletter you can subscribe to on our website, and the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And without further ado, we'll say goodbye for today. Happy Valentine's, everyone, and we'll see you again next week.